Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Tiff Macklem, the governor of the Bank of Canada, made an announcement the other day that didn't surprise anybody when he talked about how interest rates were going to remain the same, that the government is borrowing too much money, and that the outlook is not that good for Canada, and that all of our numbers are down across the board. His opening statement, however, was overlooked. And I think that it might have been overlooked because it may have seemed very innocuous, but if you speak economist, you understand that it was very significant. So even though it was less than 30 seconds or something, less than 60 seconds, absolutely. I'm trying to, I want to break it down so that people can understand the significance and so that I can lay it out for people, because I really think that it's a warning that's being ignored. Now, this is also another branch out for me, because I've always felt that I would be better at doing the opinion stuff than necessarily the reaction stuff that most of you have seen from me. So even though I analyze as opposed to react, I think that I have an idea that I could take a small clip and explain it to you in great detail. So that's what I'm going to try with this Tiff Macklem, the governor of the Bank of Canada. All right, before I get into it, I would encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you want to help the channel out, I got memberships. I'm working on setting up another form where you can sort of help me buy equipment directly, just the one-off. But I'll get there. I'm slower than some. What can you do? I got things on the go. All right. So this is just the first corner of the thing here, of course, 45 seconds. And though I did put some little comedy in the front of it, I want you to understand that there is a significant importance in everything that he says, though it seems very, like I said, very tame, very innocuous. So let's just check it. Let's just listen.
Against this backdrop, households and businesses continue to adjust to past interest rate increases. Some indicators of financial stress have risen.
So when he said that, you saw the jokes that I have put up there. That's because what he means is that people are still struggling. People are still having a hard time catching up. They're still robbing from Peter to pay Paul.
At the same time, the valuations of some financial assets appear to have become stretched.
So what he's saying is that when you own something, it's becoming overinflated. So whether you say to yourself that the house is only worth $200,000, but somebody's trying to tell you it's worth 1.2 million, whether you say to yourself that the land is worth 1.2 million, or you see, he says appears to have become stretched, is what you and I might say is overpriced or inflated or asking too much for it. What's important is two things. One, people are using it to borrow money, and two, people are trying to get that money from you. And it's also a linchpin, right? Because these things often will fall like dominoes. So if I can all of a sudden get you to sell it to me for half what you're claiming it to be, that means all the land around you is now worth half of what everybody claims it to be.
This could increase the risk of a sharp correction that could generate system-wide stress.
Okay, now sharp correction is a funny one. I want to give you an idea of what that might mean, sharp correction. And I'm going to show you an image of what you might get off the Google, a sharp correction. You can see there at category 4, where everything is going wonderful in category 3, and then in category 4, it plummets down to 0 because it's what's technically known as a sharp correction. Now, because I understand these things better than most, I'm just going to show it to you in a way that I made this drawing myself. Sharp correction. You see how it's a sharp corner, and a sharp correction is ultimately what the Bank of Canada, the governor, is trying to avoid telling you, that it's all going to turn to pot.
The recent rise in the use of leverage in non-bank financial institutions.
The recent rise of leverage in non-bank financial institutions. That means companies are borrowing money against things that they own. I have a building, I have a company in it. The property that the company is sitting on, I can use it as leverage. I can use it as collateral.
Could amplify the effects of such a correction.
could amplify the effects of such a correction means we could literally go from a recession into a depression overnight, inviting hyperinflation because all of a sudden nobody has the money to pay their debts.
What's most important is that to properly manage risks, financial system participants need to remain proactive, and financial authorities need to remain vigilant.
Okay, so they need to remain proactive and they need to remain vigilant. This is important. This is important because what he actually said there was, listen, you got to stop lending money to people who might have overinflated their property or over-leveraged their company. You have to stop lending money to these people because we have to be vigilant and we have to be proactive. There's too much money gone out into the system. That's one thing, but now the system is trying to cover its debts. That system is sending out more and more money and taking a value that it thinks it can get back that money, recover that loss by overinflating the property. Much of the house is not going to be worth $1 million, but because they borrowed so much money against it, they put it up for $1 million. They had somebody come along and say, no, it could be worth $1 million. So now we can lend you 400,000. Unfortunately, that money can't be paid back. Or worse, companies are having to borrow money because of the horrible loans that the federal government had given them. And they are again borrowing money against inventory and against properties that they may or may not have control of. And what he just said is that if you don't want to lend money, don't be smart. Be smart with your money, because if you're not going to be smart with your money, the whole system is going to collapse. You put too much money out there and you can't recover that. That means that there's no protections. And you can think about back to 2008 when they bailed out a whole bunch of those banks in the United States for just this reason. Because they couldn't cover their debts, because the people who owed them the money, there was no more value in what they had. The market fell out, the bottom came out. What they call the bubble bursting. So imagine if you were holding 4 or 5 properties that you had evaluated at $10 million, then all of a sudden overnight, those very same properties were only worth $2.5 million. Somebody is out $8 million and somebody needs that money back. And just like that, their money is never going to recover. So because you'll never pay that $8 million, you'll only pay 2.5, and he'll never be able to get that $8 million because it's only worth 2.5. So you'll have, or excuse me, the 10 million. Either way, you get the point. The point is that no matter what you had it valued at, no matter you lent money against it being worth $1 million, but now it's only worth 750,000. So buddy's only going to offer you 550, and all of a sudden that gap is the problem. That lack of money that is gone out is not coming back. It's never coming back, and this creates a lot of frailty in the system, the economic system that we're living in. So even though it was a very short stint, a very 50 seconds, it said an enormous amount. It said that on the one hand, people are still struggling with the inflation and people are still having a hard time paying their bills and surviving from one paycheck to the next paycheck. Also, all of our businesses that we thought we had as a backdrop, as a bulk work, have stretched out all of their money because nobody has any money to spend there anymore. So you see, by taking money away from the masses, you actually destroy the economy. The carbon tax, all of the inflated taxes that the federal liberals have put on are draining the finances. Then it's because they're putting taxes on capital gains and they're putting taxes on big companies. Those companies are leaving. So they might say to you, oh, Volkswagen's coming in, but you just gave Volkswagen a $40 billion tax break that you expect the Canadians to pick up the tab for in an economy that they can't afford, that they're struggling to meet. They're still having a hard time. On top of that, all of the people that are using evaluations to borrow money to sustain themselves have stretched their leverage to the limits. And now this guy says, tighten up your purses because we don't think you should be lending any money. So what does that leave us? That leaves us two. That leaves us foreign lenders who will do it at an inflation, which is exactly what happened in the housing market. Or it involves foreclosure, which will, because the bank will have too much property, will immediately devalue the amount of, like, it will devalue the property, which will cause the problem. Now, what will it cause? A cascade? Will it cause just a simple regional issue? This is something that he doesn't know. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I would love it if you would leave your comments. Tell me what you think about it. Like it. Share this with your friends. I'll talk to you next time.